The Wizards dismantled the Denver Nuggets in a surprising turn of events. It's easy to overreact in basketball, but sometimes even the underdog can have a standout quarter or half, only for the stronger team to regain control and secure the win. However, that wasn't the case this time, as the Wizards consistently outplayed the Nuggets for all 4 quarters. Nikola Jokić had an incredible night, scoring a career-high 56 points along with 16 rebounds and 8 assists, taking 38 shots in the process. It seems that was indeed a career high for him. Despite his remarkable performance, the Nuggets still ended up losing the game, which might have taken a toll on Jokić. Known for his stoic demeanor and reluctance to engage with the media, he surprised everyone with his candid remarks after the game. He mentioned that after a stretch like this, players often see a paycheck that doesn't reflect their worth, suggesting that perhaps a little motivation is needed. He even joked about the idea of being benched as a source of motivation, which is quite unusual for a star player to express. It seems the pressure's mounting, and Jokić is feeling it. Jokić began the game in his usual fashion as a playmaker, but he had 3 turnovers in the first quarter. However, he quickly found his rhythm. By the middle of the second quarter, he realized that if he didn't take control, the game would slip away. From that point on, it became a matter of him demanding the ball, saying, "Give me the ball and I'll score," repeatedly. Meanwhile, the Washington Wizards not only kept pace, but also started sinking three-pointers, a category where the Denver Nuggets typically struggle. Jordan Poole had a standout performance, setting a career high for both three-point attempts and makes, leading the Wizards to victory. It's a reminder that in the NBA, any team can pull off an upset on any given night. Even the top teams can fall to the bottom dwellers. The Wizards, despite their struggles, had the worst point differential in the first 20 games of the season, even with 2 wins against the Atlanta Hawks. So despite the absence of Jamal Murray and Eric Gordon, there are no excuses for the Nuggets. The Wizards were in a tough spot, having lost 16 consecutive games. If I were on the opposing team, that would be incredibly frustrating, especially after such a long losing streak. Recently, I discussed the Dallas Mavericks during a stretch of 5 games where Luka Doncic was sidelined. In his absence, several role players rose to the occasion. Players typically known for their three-point shooting, like Najee Marshall, transformed their game. Instead of just being a spot-up shooter, they took on more responsibility, driving to the basket, hitting mid-range shots, and utilizing floaters. In a game without Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray, you would expect other role players to step up, but that didn't happen. Michael Porter Jr., who's earning over $30 million, delivered a disappointing performance, shooting 5 for 14 and missing all 5 of his three-point attempts. I mentioned before the season that given the Nuggets' struggles, Porter should be taking more threes, especially against a smaller Washington Wizards team. The Nuggets were outmatched, attempting only 24 three-pointers compared to the Wizards' 41, making just 5 while the Wizards hit 16, with Jordan Poole contributing 9 on his own. If you're using the absence of Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon as an excuse, let me remind you that Malcolm Brogdon was also missing, and neither did Corey Kispert, Keyshawn George, or Alex Sarr. That's nearly the entire starting lineup absent. Therefore, there are absolutely no excuses for the current situation. Now, let's talk about accountability. The recent loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers was revealing. While the Cavs are an excellent NBA team, they didn't have to break a sweat in that game. The reality is that the Cavs are simply a stronger team right now, so there's no shame in that. However, following that up with a loss to the Washington Wizards raises questions. Someone needs to take responsibility for the poor start to the season. I want to address this directly. I'm going to assign 50% of the blame to the front office. This includes Calvin Booth and whoever else is making decisions. They've become complacent. The core 4 of Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokić have secured a championship in the past. This group remains strong today. However, the challenges they face extend beyond just this core. Earlier in the season, I raised concerns about whether the Denver Nuggets championship window has closed, particularly with the loss of key players like KCP. While losing KCP, Bruce Brown, and Jeff Green individually might not seem significant, their combined absence has a substantial impact. Players like Christian Braun are stepping up this season, and I believe Julian Strawther has the potential to become a great player. However, the team lacks depth, especially when Jokić is on the bench. It's perplexing that throughout Jokic's era as the league's MVP, the Nuggets have not secured a reliable backup center. It's clear they enjoy utilizing the small ball strategy with Aaron Gordon, but the absence of a reliable near 7-footer when Jokić is off the court is astonishing. DeAndre Jordan, despite being a well-liked presence in the locker room, has been out of the league's talent pool for 4 to 5 years. Against the Wizards, they depended on him to cover the minutes without Jokić, and it turned out poorly. Zeke Naji, who was expected to step up as a versatile 4 or 5 who can shoot and facilitate, has also been underwhelming. They signed him to a multi-year deal worth $8 million annually, yet in a game without Gordon and Saric, he received a DNP due to a coach's decision against the Wizards, an absolute failure. While it's easy to point fingers at the front office, it's important to recognize the limited flexibility they have. They lack tradable second-round picks, and if I'm correct, they also have no tradable first-round picks. This situation leaves them with only one-for-one trade options, which are rare in the NBA and typically don't lead to significant improvements for the team. The front office of the Denver Nuggets has reached a critical juncture during the Jokić era, leading me to seriously question the situation with Jamal Murray. He didn't participate in this game, but it's worth discussing. After signing a substantial contract, his performance over the past 8 months has been underwhelming. While he occasionally shines in a game, his overall consistency has been lacking. Additionally, there have been numerous discussions and rumors regarding a potential conflict between coach Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, but no one's been able to identify the source of these tensions. In some post-game interviews, when asked about the team's strategy without Nikola Jokić on the court, he responds with, "I pray." While I understand the sentiment behind his words, if I were a player ranked 7th to 10th on the roster, I would feel undervalued hearing my coach imply that our performance hinges solely on Jokic's presence. This statement seems intended to apply pressure on Calvin Booth to make necessary roster decisions. Malone has a reputation for being hesitant to play younger players, as those drafted in the second round or late first round often aren't ready to contend for a championship. By expressing a reliance on Jokić, he's essentially signaling to Booth that they need to find ways to cope without him, which could also affect the mindset of the players who are actively competing. I'm observing them getting completely overwhelmed by the Washington Wizards in all the aspects that don't show up in the stats, like chasing loose balls and battling through screens. These elements reflect the need for strong motivation within the locker room to energize the team for these matchups. When Joker mentioned the need for a different kind of motivation, I believe that falls on Michael Malone. It's his responsibility to inspire his players to rally together, especially in what should be straightforward games against the league's weakest teams. There are times when Malone deploys lineups that make me think he's intentionally showcasing the shortcomings of the roster. Lastly, I have to address the players themselves. While I look at Malone for guidance, the players also need to show some commitment. When Jokić mentioned needing extra motivation related to contracts, it highlights that both the coaching and the players share responsibility. Ultimately, I feel the talent level isn't quite what many expect it to be. Having Jokić on your team is a game changer. He elevates the talent around him. This can create a false sense of security though, making it seem like you can get by with less skilled players. However, that approach is wearing thin. I'm noticing players completely disengaging on defense, which leads to offensive rebounds and opportunities for opponents. Jamal Murray recently mentioned that the team needs to be more committed, as some players seem to lack focus this season. He even took responsibility for his own distractions. While everyone shares some blame for the current situation, it's important to remember that you still have the best player in the league, yet the team isn't consistently competitive. Jokić might be in the running for MVP, but with the team sitting at the 9th seed, it raises questions. When has a 9th seed ever won the MVP? Right now, it seems like Shea might be the frontrunner instead. If the Nuggets don't change something soon, Joker will start looking for a new home. He's in his prime years and he shouldn't waste them with a franchise with internal conflicts and without a vision for the future.